Scene 1. First breath magical sunset. Red and orange are coloring the sea. Adam's friends are spread out on the sand dot. They laugh, dance, and take pictures. And the songs are sung loudly from the portable speaker. Adam was the star of the place. A loose white shirt, with a green tropical leaf pattern, open to the chest and sandy shorts, and dark glasses hanging from his finger. And his hair has the last gleam of the sun. He walks in front of his friends, splashing water and laughing. A girl standing watching him. Her eyes wouldn't leave him. She knows she loves him. But he don't feel anything for her, not for anyone. Adam always didn't like to mingle with anyone from his heart. Even when he's with his friends. There's something about him that's distant, deep, and untouchable. Run towards the sea, screamed. Let's go, and jumped into the waves. But his laughter suddenly choked. Step slippery. Something pulled his leg. Adam drowned. Deep sea, he was trying to scream, but the water is still coming in. His hand is holding on to the void. His legs are moving up and down without control. Light from above far away. And silence is deafening. And suddenly something wrapped around his waist, strong arm and a firm chest. Human heat does not belong in the sea. Now his face was calm, his long hair floats around him like a halo. And his eyes were filled with a strange kind of concentration. Pull it up quickly. The strokes of his tail split the water like a spear. And they reached the roof of the sea. They suddenly appeared on the surface of the water. Adam was unconscious and his face is pale. Neil put his arms around him and swam towards the shore, and take him to the sand. He stretched him out and knelt over him. Water was dripping from his long hair. His body was completely attached to Adam's body. His chest over his chest, and his skin is on Adam's skin. And breath, from his lips to Adam's. Neil shared his breath, a silent vow in every exhale. Deep, steady, with a short gasp. And pressed on his chest once. Twice. And suddenly Adam gasped. The water flew away from his mouth, his chest rose. And he opened his eyes. And the first thing he saw was Niall's face. It was strange, beautiful, but in a way that defied his understanding. People started running towards them. But before anyone arrives, something happened that they don't understand. Neil suddenly gasped, "Look at his body." And his tail started to dry up. The water slipped off his tail, his seashell peeled off quietly. And human legs appeared for the first time in his life. He breathed hard as if his body was being born again. But his eyes were only on Adam. Adam put his hand on his chest. Don't understand what happened, but his heart is beating abnormally. Neil stood with difficulty, take 2 steps back and ran towards the sea, and before it disappears, his feet turned back into tails and he hit the water with it. A huge blow made the
wave fly away. Water sprinkled everyone. Tables fell. The food spilled. And peace returned. And everyone forgot. They all started saying, "What happened? What were we talking about?" But Adam? Standing. Wet. Trembling. His eyes are on the sea, and whispered to himself, "What did you just see?" Chapter 2. When his feet touched the dry land, it wasn't just the sea he left behind, but an entire lifetime of solitude and wonder. The sun was sinking shyly behind the horizon, painting the sky in mesmerizing shades of orange, while the waves whispered softly to the shore. Deep beneath the surface, Neil was watching from afar, as he did every day. But today was different. His heart beat in a rhythm he somehow understood. Something was pulling him upward, toward the surface. So he rose. A gentle wave lifted him, carrying his body with tenderness until the water brushed the edges of the shore, and his tail began to dry, little by little. Neil felt a soft tingling sensation. He looked down, startled. I have legs? Just like them?" He whispered in awe, staring at his knees, ankles, toes, for the first time. He stood unsteadily, swaying like a branch in the wind, wearing nothing. Everyone looked at him, people eating, young folks laughing, children running. And suddenly, an old lady screamed, "Shame on you! That boy came out without clothes? I should have kept my eyes shut today." Neil didn't understand. He wrapped his arms around himself, trembling. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. The old woman clutched her chest dramatically and rushed toward him, holding a large shawl and a long blouse. No modesty left in this world? She muttered, wrapping the clothes around him. What are these? Neil asked, pulling the fabric over his body, feeling strange. The woman sighed. Clothes, my boy. Clothes, to save us from disgrace. Neil gave a faint smile. My name is Neil. And now I have legs? The old woman laughed, a tear escaping her eye. Oh, sweetheart, you look like you came out of a movie, not the sea. Neil stood among the people like a stranger from another world, unaware of what streets were, why humans wore clothes, or what shame even meant. But deep inside, something was whispering, this world, there's something I need to understand. And someone I want to see again. The sun reached its peak that day, scorching his damp, new skin. Neil wandered through unfamiliar streets, the only shawl clinging to his body from sweat and fatigue. His new legs, still untrained, stumbled beneath him. Why does everything hurt so much? He murmured, swaying, his wet blonde hair sticking to his face, his eyes dazzled by the light, breath heavy. And then in front of him, the market, old cobblestones beneath his feet. Carts passing by. Couples holding hands. Children laughing. Women bargaining and giggling. The smell of fresh bread and grilled meat overwhelmed his senses. Neil paused, eyes wide with wonder. In a corner, a little boy munched on a piece of fruit. Neil shyly approached. Is that food? The boy looked at him, grinned, and kept chewing. Can I have some? He asked softly. The child shrugged, tore off a small piece, and offered it. Neil thanked him gently, took a bite, and for a moment, something bloomed in his mouth. Delicious. Strange. New. But then, his stomach twisted again. Growling. The voice was clear. A man behind a food cart turned, eyes locking onto Neil's hand. The pearl as if it called to him. Hey, kid! The vendor shouted. Hungry? Come here. You can have everything on this cart, just hand me that thing in your hand. Neil hesitated. He clutched the pearl to his chest. This isn't just a stone. She was always with me. His eyes welled up. I'll come back for you. I promise. Then, he held it out, and gave it to the vendor. He laughed. Take the whole cart. You've earned it. Starving, Neil began to eat, bread, fruit, things he couldn't name. For the first time, he felt full. But he wasn't alone. From a corner of the market, 3 men watched him. Their eyes weren't on the food, they were on his now empty wrist. As if something more valuable had once been there. They approached. You look like some spoiled rich boy gone mad. This ain't your place, give us what you got. Neil, confused and innocent, stammered, I don't have anything. I gave it to the seller. One grabbed his shawl. You expect us to believe that? Let's see what you're hiding. Neil's heart pounded. He felt something inside, a fire, growing. I don't want to hurt anyone, he whispered, voice shaking, holding back the power within him. But they didn't listen. They hit him. He fell to the ground. One hand on his stomach, the other shielding his face. Then suddenly, you. What do you think you're doing? A sharp, familiar voice. Adam. He ran toward them, fire in his eyes. He punched one. The other ran. You? He said, helping Neil to his feet. How did you get here, what are you? Neil, barely opening his eyes, saw Adam's face, hair dancing in the breeze, eyes glimmering with something he couldn't name, warmth? Fear? He didn't understand it. Chapter 3 But he felt it. The strangeness that walked on two legs. His breath was shallow. His body, bruised and aching, stood still beneath an old, flickering street lamp. A strange city surrounded him, its lights too bright, its sounds too sharp. A world that didn't know him, and he didn't know it. From the shadows emerged Adam, cool as the night breeze, sunglasses sitting low on his nose, walking like he owned the sidewalk. He stopped a few steps away and tilted his head, his voice coated in mockery. "I've been looking at you for a while. You didn't even try to raise a finger. What would have happened if I hadn't walked by? Just by chance?" Neil said nothing. Adam turned his back, ready to disappear again like smoke. But then, a voice caught the air between them. Fragile, desperate, still glowing with purity. "Please, take me with you. Before they come back. I don't want to hurt anyone. And I don't want to be hurt either." Adam glanced over his shoulder. He looked Neil up and down, the shimmering skin beneath the torn fabric, the strange stillness in his eyes. He raised one brow, half amused. "You're not a child. And from the looks of it, you're not weak either. Handle yourself. I don't care." But his eyes lingered too long. And Neil, not knowing why, took a step forward, then another. Until his feet followed the faint light he saw in Adam. A pulse unfamiliar crossed into my chest, tender and sharp. It stole my breath, and filled me with something new. A few streets away from Adam's apartment, Neil sat on a lonely bench. The city roared around him, but he was quiet, watching. That's when she appeared, a girl with a prideful air, hips swaying like a question mark, eyes fixed on him. Her gaze was sharp, lips curled. "You look homeless. But your face doesn't lie. Who are you?" Neil smiled, happy to be asked, happy to answer. "I'm Neil. And I have legs now." He said it like it was a miracle, and maybe it was. She laughed. Playful. Curious. "I like you, Neil. You're handsome, but this wild hair, that messy face, those torn clothes. You're hiding treasure under all this, aren't you?" "I came from the ocean," he said, innocently. She invited him inside, drawn by the mystery. But Neil didn't understand the rules. He picked up her phone. Tapped it. Nothing. So he threw it at the wall. It shattered. "Are you insane? Who even are you?" He said calmly and with the innocence of a child, "I told you. I'm Neil. I only want to know more about your kind." She shoved him toward the door, slamming it behind him. Alone again. Just the streets. Just the noise. Just the ache. The sun has set. He wandered back to the same park bench. But peace wouldn't stay. The police came. "You can't sleep here." Their words cold. Final. He didn't understand. He didn't argue. He just walked. Until he found himself standing before a familiar door. Adam's. And then the rain began. One drop. Then another. Then 1,000. Like the sky was crying just for him. With each drop, his skin started to change. Breathing became harder. The land felt too heavy. His legs trembled. The water was calling him back. To the deep. To the truth. To the place he left behind. His fingers twitched. The warmth was leaving him. His pulse slowing. He clenched his fists, fighting it. Fighting what he was. And above, on the second-floor balcony, stood Adam. Watching. Saying nothing. But seeing everything. "I'm just a droplet that slipped from your ocean. Was it real? Was what my sister saw a myth that breathes beneath the rain?" Evening fell. And the sky bent low, weeping over his body. Neil had completed his transformation. There, at the edge of the cold staircase, he sat, staring at his shimmering tail, curling into himself, as a tear fell. But it wasn't a tear, it was a pearl, pure, heavy, born from a heart unaccustomed to regret. His golden hair clung to his neck, and his bare chest trembled beneath the falling rain. Everything around him was human, except his heart. And that heart was still made of ocean from above. Adam froze in place. His eyes hadn't been mistaken. What he saw was no dream. "Hey, you!" Adam called out, voice trembling beneath a forced calm. "What's your name?" Neil turned toward him, a soft smile blooming on his shivering lips. "Neil, my name is Neil." Adam exhaled slowly. "All right, Neil, what made you leave that vast ocean, to come here, to this broken world?" But Neil didn't answer out loud. Instead, he whispered inwardly, "How do you forget the wonders God gifted you? If only you'd seen what I saw in your eyes that first time. You'd have never said such a thing." Suddenly, a car passed quickly down the street. Adam rushed down instinctively, arms reaching. He carried Neil as if cradling something fragile, something made of light, into the warmth of the house, away from the rain's quiet sorrow. The next morning faint sunlight tapped against the bathroom window. Neil woke up in the bathtub. His eyes fixated on the tiled floor beneath him, still not quite believing he was lying on something that wasn't the ocean floor. He stood up, dried himself, then wrapped a towel around his waist and stepped quietly into the living room. Adam stood before the mirror, fixing his hair carefully. Already dressed, ready to leave. Neil watched him. As if the light in the room had gathered only on Adam's shoulders. Adam glanced at Neil briefly through the mirror, then asked, "Are you always this happy?" It wasn't sarcasm. It was an honest question, as though he'd seen something pure he'd never encountered in anyone else. Neil winked, smiled. But didn't answer immediately. He paused, as though searching for a way to translate sorrow into this new language. Adam said quietly, "Is there anything worth losing the light in your eyes for?" Neil stepped closer, his voice soft as sea breeze. "Is that why you tried to end your life, riding that wave so high?" Adam froze. He turned sharply, eyes flaring. "What are you talking about?" But Neil remained calm. His voice still carried the tide's rhythm. "There's no light in your eyes, Adam. If nothing is worth it, then why are you so fragile inside?" Adam turned away, his steps fast, sharp. "You don't know me at all." Neil followed, his voice a quiet prayer. "The aura around you, it's drawn me in, for years. I may not know everything about you, but I know this, you need someone next to you." Adam chuckled dryly, picking up his keys. "Years? Stay beside me? If I hadn't seen you. If I hadn't seen with my own eyes that you're a fish. I'd have thought you were insane." He sighed, murmuring without meeting Neil's gaze, "Doesn't matter. I'll let you stay. Until you're back on your feet. Then you leave." He walked out the door without looking back. Neil stood there. A whisper broke from his lips, a message only his soul could hear. "You never looked at me once, not once during all your visits to the sea. But you didn't touch me. You didn't break me. You didn't chain me, you didn't try to take advantage of me like he did. He looked like you. And I thought he was drowning. So I saved him. But he didn't save me." Neil rested his head against the wall, his breath trembling. His eyes on the door. "Maybe you did see I was a fish. Maybe not. But you're the only one who didn't try to break me." Footsteps faded. The door clicked shut. Silence. Stillness. Only the crashing waves within Neil remained. He looked down at his feet, now fully human, and he smiled with bitter innocence. "But I do have feet now, and I am standing on them. So Do I leave? Adam's family home smaller than his apartment. But warmer, and all because of his little sister. Adam visited often, only for her. That morning, between the soft laughter and catching up, Neil slipped quietly in behind him. The little girl looked up, and her eyes lit up. It's him. I saw him in the ocean. She ran toward Neil, gasping, the merman got legs? That's amazing. Neil, for the first time, smiled in peace. Someone recognized him. Someone wasn't afraid. Someone liked him. Before he could say a word, Adam covered Neil's mouth, frowning, not one word. Didn't I tell you to stay home? What are you doing here? They stepped inside, Neil's cold dinner. The clock neared 5 in the evening when Adam crossed the threshold, cradling his little sister in his arms. A faint smile clung to his lips, like a wound, striving to seem natural. But as soon as he stepped into the living room, something in him gasped. His brother. Sebastian. One leg crossed over the other. A look alight with confidence. A smile laced with irony. Hair combed just right, like a man groomed to inherit the family company. "Oh, look who's back," said his brother, raising his glass of water as if it were a toast to Adam's failure. "How could you leave the company, to live like this? Modeling now? Selling your body?" He said it coldly, as if slicing Adam's dignity with a knife, not touching his skin at all. Adam stood in the center of the room, holding his sister close. His gaze fixed on Sebastian, but his heart. A lump. A muted volcano. Breath held captive. An inner voice screamed, "Stay silent." For her sake he finally smiled, worn, tired, more courageous than mocking. "This is a profession, you fool. And why did you even come back?" He spoke, unaware that the words sprang from sorrow, not pride, from anger, not arrogance, simply to remain standing. Before the other could reply, their father intervened, voice cracking sharply like a slap. "That's enough. This is my home. I don't want family fighting here. You're both grown adults, behave accordingly." A heavy silence fell before Adam whispered, not to anyone, but to himself, or to his memory, "Family. I've always been the flaw in the picture. But I mastered the acting, until you believed I belonged." He flicked his gaze to a distant corner, smiling with lips that had learned silence, speaking in a voice where only hidden pain sounded. "I wore your mask. Not out of love for who you are, but from fear I'd remain a stranger forever." They sat then, around the table. But it wasn't dinner. It was a funeral for good intentions. His mother watched Adam with a look devoid of tenderness, eyes that seemed counting the minutes of his failures. Then she turned to Neil, sitting quietly beside him, hair still damp, with a laughing child in his lap playing with his golden curls. "And who is this?" she asked, raising an eyebrow, her voice sharp. "A friend," Adam replied without thinking. She stared at him, long and silent. Then murmured, "You bring strangers into our home?" "Stranger." The child's laughter paused. Neil's heart shrank. One word, enough to topple him from the peak of light into the darkness of earth. "Stranger?" But I was the one who saved him. I was the one who followed my heart. Who believed in his smile. "Stranger?" Yet I warmed his hand in the rain. That single word, a fall. A tremor. An agonizing silence. The father said simply, without even looking around, "Leave him be, as long as he brings us no shame." Shame. Adam fought not to explode, not to smash the table, not to leap up and scream. I was always the stranger. Me. 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 A tear, but it held. A child resting in his lap. He must stay strong. The younger sister, as always, forced truth from innocent lips, "But he's not a stranger. He's gentle, radiant. I saw a rainbow in him when he smiled." Silence. "And Neil?" He looked at her as if she were an angel. As if she'd seen him, not as he is, but as he should be. In the kitchen, Neil helped set the dishes. Adam passed behind him, heading to the bathroom, then paused suddenly. "And who let you wear my clothes?" Neil turned, wearing a tight sweater stretched across his broad muscles, his voice shy and childlike. "I wanted to feel like you were close." Adam looked at him, smiled lightly, and said, "Yes, very close. So close that this poor sweater needs just one move from you before it gives up completely." Dinner. Tense breaths. Crossed glances. Few words. Eyebrows telling stories. Everyone in this house hid something. Adam sat as if every chair was an adversary. The father spoke of the company. The brother talked contracts. The mother asked about schedules. And Adam? He ate in silence. Neil sat beside him, untouched food in front of him, only watching. Learning that humans don't just eat bread, they eat one another's souls too. Tension. A word. A look. An incomplete smile. A careless nod. "How did you manage to stay here all these years?" Neil whispered into Adam's ear. Adam didn't reply. He lifted a glass of water slowly, drained it, swallowing the pain he'd carried since childhood.
Autumn had knocked on the doors, yet inside him, there was no defined season. Adam sat in his leather chair by the window, a cup of coffee in hand, his gaze clinging to the world outside. The sky was gray, and the sea, still, like a buried secret. Behind him, on his wide bed, the little girl Yara slept deeply in Neil's arms. She slept as if the world held no weight for her, and Neil's arms wrapped around her with a tenderness that resembled belonging. His face was still, his breaths deep, and in the ease of his brows, there was a strange calm, as if, for a moment, he was a man who belonged. Neil awoke gently, his eyelids fluttered before parting, his gaze wandering the ceiling before settling on the child. Her tousled hair brushed his neck, her warmth touched a heart that had long been cold. He tried to move slowly, to free her from his arms like someone releasing a butterfly without breaking its wings, but when he lifted his eyes, there, in the corner, Adam's eyes were sunken, shadowed, and uncertain. No sharpness in them, only a question. A silence followed, one that felt like time had ceased. Then Adam spoke without turning. "Autumn is here, and will pass swiftly. Then comes winter. If Yara grows attached to you, she won't let you go." The words were aimed at Neil, but they left Adam's lips like a plea. Disguised in sternness, his voice wasn't a command. It was a quiet desperation. He lifted his cup, sipped the last drop of coffee, and left it there, like a token of regret. Neil spoke then, his gaze unwavering, voice rising from his chest like a promise. "And who told you I wanted to leave?" Adam froze for a second, then exhaled, like something wild was pulled from his lungs, and nodded toward the door. "Let's not wake her. Let's talk outside." The two stepped onto the balcony. The breeze played across their faces, the salt of the sea kissing the silence between them. "You can stay, for Yara's sake," Adam said, eyes on the horizon, half-lidded like he didn't want to face the truth. "But if you truly want to stay, you need to find a job. I'm not responsible for anyone." He turned toward him, speaking flatly, but his eyes betrayed him. There was a thread of longing in them, shining for a breath, then vanishing. "Stay with her today. Tomorrow, go find work." Neil stood still. A light wind tangled his hair, and within him, an old echo stirred. Responsibility. Maybe that's where humanity begins. Or maybe it begins in admitting you can't control who you love, that you can't always protect them or stay for them every second, but still you stay at the chute. Noise, lights that sting the eyes, voices overlapping. Adam stood among them, wearing a perfectly crafted smile, his face composed, but his fingers trembled. A small mistake in the scene, tension, sharp glances, patience snapping like a taut string. The day was heavy, each second falling like a drop of fire on his skin. But on the beach, far from the noise, close to clarity, Neil held Yara's tiny hand, and she walked beside him with trust. The sun was fierce, the wind salty, yet the child was unharmed. Neil whispered to her, "Wait here for me." Then he entered the water, like a diver who knew its secrets. He plunged deep, returned with seaweed and shells, extracting a slick, transparent substance. He rubbed it on the child's face and arms. She cringed. What's this?" He smiled, his eyes narrowing with mischief. "Sea magic. It'll protect you from the sun." He crouched down, back toward her. "Do you trust me?" She studied his face. It looked like something from a story, then climbed onto his back, laughing. They entered the water, and the sea embraced them. There his tail appeared, shimmering, silver, gleaming beneath the sunlight. Yara squealed in delight, clutching him tightly as Neil swam with ease. His laughter scattered across the ocean, as if his heart was healing from a nameless wound. Happiness, does it come from the heart, or is it seen through the eyes? Is it a touch, a laugh, a fleeting moment? Maybe joy isn't meant to be understood. Maybe it's only meant to be lived. They returned home, soaked in memories. On the balcony, Neil dried himself and Yara helped. She gently patted his tail dry, then stood before him with a little pout. "Your hair is so soft. I want mine like yours." He laughed, eyes holding the warmth of the sea. "One day, I'll braid your hair with threads of the moon." Her smile enveloped him. He wrapped his tail, and as he did, his legs slowly returned. Evening, the bar was packed, the air thick with artificial laughter. Adam sat among friends, trying to seem normal, but he was lost, his glass half empty, his heart wholly so. Dizziness doesn't come from the drink. It comes from drowning. In the attempt to forget, he left a car's noise, its window open. He staggered closer and saw Sebastian, his brother, buttoning up his shirt, tossing money into the seat. His voice cold, controlled. His voice cold, controlled. "I want the keys on my desk tomorrow." Natalie. Adam hid behind a concrete wall, his heart racing with unfamiliar urgency. He muttered, voice hoarse. "He talks about honor, the respectable profession." He paused, eyes gleaming with rage, his jaw tight. "That's why he was so cruel to me, because he hides his filth beneath his elegance." He sat there, behind the wall. The world moved around him, but he remained still, like a wound. Midnight, Neil sat beside the sleeping Yara, her face angelic, her breath a gentle rhythm. In her hand, a doll. On her cheek, a trace of sea salt, as if the memory refused to fade. He whispered, reaching softly toward her hair. "Love. Maybe it can't be defined. It's simply seeing someone sleep in peace, and feeling that this world is worth it." Then he closed his eyes, as if holding a fragile dream, and said, "I won't understand all of humanity, but I'd love to learn." Sleep tugged at his lashes. He took a deep breath, his eyes half-lidded, watching the door with quiet unease. Adam didn't return, he whispered within, but sleep pressed heavier than worry. And before he drifted off completely, somewhere on the city's edge, a body weighed down by defeat was being carried gently. Arms that knew how to hold without waking pain. Soft steps, bearing the lost one home, to the child waiting for him, and to a heart that still beat his name, even in absence. His face was unseen, but his eyes, had anyone noticed them, said only one thing: "I found you, and I won't let you get lost again." In the family house, words were sharper than swords, and failure was something no one admitted. The house was boiling, not from the sun's heat, but from the heat of harsh words. The air was thick with the scent of anger, and the walls echoed curses as if they memorized them. The father stood like an ancient wall, his voice striking harder than any hand. "All that calm, and all that flattery towards me, was it all to hide your reckless folly, you wretch?" Sebastian, the eldest son, lifted his head, his eyes staring into the void. Flattery? Is that what you call it? The father spat the words like a slap. Yes, flattery and recklessness. And that ingrate, your brother Adam. All eyes suddenly turned to the middle brother. A husband, maybe a father, or perhaps just a shadow in another house. Sebastian pierced him with a stabbing look. And what about that fool? Why don't you scold him? Only Adam and I seem to be your targets. The father raised an eyebrow, as if the words were beneath reply. At least, he married and freed me from his burden. The middle brother clenched his fists till his knuckles turned white, suppressing a rage akin to tears. The father turned to him as if pouring salt on a wound. What brings you here at such a bad time? Did your wife divorce you? He said it with a cold laugh. A laugh that gnawed at the bones of dignity. There, between the heavy silences, came a voice. Not from any mouth. It was not physically present, but it arrived like waves touching the shore for the first time. Sometimes we try to return, only to be rejected. Weakness overwhelms us, and we drown in the darkness of the ocean. On its surface, the sun shines bright, but in its depths, secrets hide. The gem of choice. Either keep it pure, or drift with the current. The voice broke with a crash. A voice louder than wisdom, screaming, punches, and kicks raining down on Sebastian. The ground moaned beneath the furious feet. Enough! Enough! Stop! His voice mingled with blood and humiliation. I will settle this. I will catch that damned photographer, and make him confess it was all fabricated. Don't worry. But what lingered in the air was no promise. It was the heavy smell of insult, a wound that no time nor revenge could heal. The night was still stuck on the bar's glass. Its mist mixed with the scent of alcohol and memories that refused to die. Sebastian entered with heavy steps, as if knowing the answer lay before him but carried poison. He approached the screen, his eyes devouring the images with angry hunger. There, in the corner of the video, appeared Adam. Stumbling, drunk, features lost. Then another shadow, a slender figure picking him up and carrying him away. Sebastian narrowed his eyes, tilted his head slightly, as if digging into memory. Is that you, Adam? A cold smile carved its way across his face. Did you change careers to become a photographer? Or are you planning something? Or trying to destroy me? The bar owner raised his eyebrows, his voice cautious. But it's clear from the footage he was drunk, and the other was trying to help him. He wasn't the one who filmed the scandal. Sebastian laughed a short, dry laugh. You don't know him. Rebellious, arrogant. He must have done it after I insulted him last night. He slowly closed the screen, like closing a coffin on a secret, and left, the air outside the bar colder than ever before. I began to yearn, where the heart meets warmth amid the crashing waves of life. The autumn wind stung their faces as they walked along the shore. Yara held Adam's hand, her small smile melting a bit of the evening's chill. But the breeze shifted, growing heavier. Sharp footsteps approached, scraping the sand beneath them. Adam turned to see Sebastian approaching from afar, flanked by two broad-shouldered men, their eyes like hawks ready to strike. Without a word, he grabbed Adam by the collar, lifted him as if he weighed nothing, then slammed his fist into Adam's face. The metallic taste exploded in Adam's mouth, blood pouring over his lip, while Yara's scream pierced through the haze. Another kick, another blow, and the cold sand pressed against his cheek. Sebastian bent to one knee, leaning close to Adam's face, nearly hearing his broken breaths. Will you stand up and confess on camera that jealousy and spite drove you to do all this? Or shall I end you here in front of this child? Adam gasped, wiping blood from his mouth, his voice laced with pain. This child. She is your sister, Yara. Sebastian raised his fist again, but a strong hand gripped it from behind. The scene was not just violent. It was as if time itself fractured. Adam, sprawled on the ground, his pupils dilated wide, a sharp lump choking him, a warmth filling his chest. He didn't know from which crevice in his soul this feeling emerged, a mixture of gratitude and betrayal, strength and solace. How could someone with no blood tie stand before him like this? How could a stranger's hand become a shield when the arms of those closest failed to be a refuge? Sebastian's grip slackened as he saw his men sprawled on the sand, writhing in pain. He rose slowly, turned toward Neil, nearly striking him, but his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered coldly, then turned back to Adam. The heavens must like you, then. My assistant caught the photographer. Sorry for doubting you. He spoke as if it weighed nothing, then turned and left. Before Neil could follow, small hands wrapped around his foot, Yara's cold fingers clutching tight. Don't go. His foot slipped free, then she grasped his hand, pulling him toward Adam seated on the sand. The atmosphere shifted. The cold intensified, yet the scent of warm soup led them inside the wooden house overlooking the waves. Night breezes slipped through the windows, carrying something unseen, yet they stirred Adam's heart, returning its warmth once more. He sat leaning on the blue couch, Yara laughing as she dragged her toys in front of the TV, her little eyes wide with innocence. In the kitchen, Neil stirred a soup made from seaweed, its fragrant aroma filling the room. Adam spoke softly, his voice trembling oddly, as if afraid the feeling would escape if fully spoken aloud. I don't know why you do all this for me. He paused, glancing at Yara laughing by the TV, then at Neil's back in the kitchen, the spoon swirling gently in the pot. But you make me want to write again. In that moment, he felt the wooden walls breathe warmth around them, the scent of soup spreading to cover yesterday's wounds, the waves softly clapping as if blessing this moment. A small, strange smile crept upon his lips, not a smile of victory nor of contentment, but that of a man who had been drowning for ages, and finally touched the surface, taking his first free breath. Fire between the waves. Adam looked into Neil's eyes with quiet gratitude, his voice broken yet sincere. Thank you for being there. That night outside the bar, and last night. Neil smiled faintly, replying softly. Were you awake then? Adam shook his head, answering honestly. No, but who else would have stayed by my side? Neil leaned closer, as if whispering a secret only for him. Maybe I wasn't alone, Adam. Curiosity sparked in Adam's eyes. What do you mean? Neil's memory flickered dim lights from the night before the bar. Adam, drunk beyond coherence, lay sprawled behind the concrete wall like an abandoned statue. Neil had lifted him gently, as if carrying a flower at the edge of a cliff. Then, suddenly, a speeding car pulled up. Inside was the middle brother Ryan, who stepped out without hesitation, helping Neil ease Adam into the back seat, before driving toward Adam's home by the shore, where the sea met the sky. Adam returned to the present, muttering under his breath. Ryan really helped me? I can't believe he did that. Why now? A dim noon. Elsewhere, under the pale gold light of midday, Sebastian stood in a small room, sweat beading on his brow, his eyes burning with rage and challenge as he faced the cameraman bound by thick cables. With cold mockery, he began. You've been hanging here since morning, tasted every flavor of our hospitality. Will you finally admit it? That your videos about me are fake? The camera is still rolling, come on. Don't make me wait. A heavy silence. The cameraman said nothing. Not until Sebastian let him glimpse the bag of cash. With a bitter, crooked smile, Sebastian asked, Why me? Why did you choose me to extort? Of all the ways, of all the people, why me? The cameraman laughed through split lips, his voice trembling but defiant. Because you were easy to find, because you're an addict, sex, fame, because you're a vile man without a conscience. And most of all, because your vault is full of money. I know it doesn't all come from the company. He gave Sebastian a sly, bloody grin. Isn't that right? Sebastian tilted his head, mocking. You're insane and stupid, but you have some facts. Wait, let me applaud you. He clapped, slow and sharp, his voice dripping disdain. Do you think money will be clean in your hands? What about your conscience? Where will it go? Raising his phone, Sebastian's eyes darkened. Let me show you the price of playing with the wrong man. To prove that you, Kyle Blackwood, will kneel in seconds, begging for mercy. On the screen, the video played Kyle in humiliating clarity, yet still lifting his head as though his disgrace were a crown. Kyle's voice cracked, his body trembling as he crawled toward Sebastian's foot. Please? My wife, my kids. You have to understand. Don't send it! Sebastian shook his foot free, accidentally striking Kyle's nose, blood dripping onto the cold floor. I told you you'd beg. Didn't I? But what you don't know is that I have no mercy when it comes to money. And you asked for money. Kyle mumbled in weak protest, but it was no more than a whisper drowned in Sebastian's storm. The latter smiled, pressed send, and tossed the phone onto the table. Too late. Kyle, humiliated and exhausted, dragged himself across the floor, his trembling fingers reaching for the phone as if it were his last lifeline. But before he could touch it, Sebastian's two aides emerged from the shadows, grabbing his arms, lifting his broken body, and throwing him out like worthless scrap. Kyle landed hard on the cold ground outside. From his lips came words dark as the void, heavy with threat and despair, phantoms that seemed to hover in the air around him. This isn't over. You'll pay the price. Your family, my family, you'll make them taste pain as I have. His voice became a haunting echo in the corridors of the dark, as if determined to return the blow in kind, carrying the weight of his humiliation and betrayal, bound to take revenge, no matter the cost.